So um, there is this incredibly specific, almost biological mechanism that happens in your brain every single time you meet a new person,
Yeah, it's completely automatic.
completely. And it takes roughly 100 milliseconds.
Literally the blink of an eye.
Yeah, before you have even consciously registered that you're looking at a human being,
Hmm.
um, before you've heard their voice or know their name, your brain has already made this whole series of high-stakes executive decisions.
Right. It's deciding, is this person a threat? Are they competent?
Are they trustworthy?
Do I even like them?
Exactly. And it is the operating system we're all running on, whether we like it or not.
We are, at our core, visual creatures. We map the territory of the face before we even begin to navigate the personality.
Right. But in the modern world, we usually try to suppress that instinct, right? We tell ourselves, don't judge a book by its cover.
We try to be modern and objective.
Yeah, fair. We pretend that the physical appearance is um, just a wrapper.
But today, we are diving into a stack of documents that argues the exact opposite of that.
Yes, we are. Today on the Deep Dive, we are looking at a worldview that says, no, you actually should judge the book by the cover,
Because the cover is the only thing that matters.
because the cover is the book.
That is the central thesis we're unpacking today. We are exploring the work and the incredibly strange, contradictory life of John Caspar Lavater.
And specifically, we are looking at his magnum opus, Essays on Physiognomy,
The 8th edition, to be exact.
translated by Thomas Holcroft.
Yeah.
And this edition is special because it includes Lavater's own memoirs and these really specific physiognomical rules.
Right. And just to set the stakes here for you listening, this isn't just about reading palms or, checking bumps on a skull like phrenology.
No, this is way deeper.
This is a man who genuinely believed that the shape of your nose was a direct theological message from God about the state of your eternal soul.
It's a massive claim. And what makes this deep dive so fascinating is that we aren't just analyzing his science, if we can even call it that.
We are really analyzing the man himself.
Because when you dig into these memoirs, and we have so much material here on his childhood, his fears, his psyche, you realize that Lavater is the ultimate test case for his own theory.
He really is. He is the subject and the scientist simultaneously.
So we have these two parallel tracks today. On one side, the science of physiognomy, how to read a face, what it meant to the 18th century.
And on the other, the mystery of Lavater.
This timid, sickly boy who somehow became a vigilante hero.
Vigilante is a strong word, but as we'll see in the documents, it's not actually inaccurate. He was a man of absolute extremes.
Let's start with the big concept first, just to ground everyone. Physiognomy.
Right.
In the modern world, this is largely considered pseudoscience. We lump it in with astrology or crystal healing.
But in the late 18th century, this was cutting edge.
This was the big data of its day.
It was.
Why? What was the logic that made this so compelling to people back then?
You really have to put yourself in the mindset of the Enlightenment. This was an era that was just obsessed with categorization.
Order and structure.
Exactly. You have Carl Linnaeus categorizing every plant and flower. You have others putting animals into families and species.
The scientific world was essentially building a giant filing system for reality.
And Lavater looks at humanity and says, well, we are the masterpiece of creation. We are the pinnacle. Why would we be the only thing in the universe without a label?
That is such an interesting point.
Yeah.
If a beetle has a specific shape that tells you what it does, why wouldn't a human?
Right. And the source material uses this really fascinating argument about inanimate objects to prove this point.
It's a syllogism, right?
It is, and it's actually quite beautiful in its logic. Lavater argues that literally everything in the universe has a characteristic exterior.
So if you look at a diamond,
Its exterior tells you it's hard, brilliant, and sharp.
and if you look at a rose,
Its form tells you it's soft, fragrant, delicate. The form follows the nature of the thing.
so Lavater asks if inanimate objects and simple animals have a readable exterior that tells you exactly what they are.
Why would man, quote, the noblest, best harmonized, and most beauteous of beings, unquote, be the exception?
Why would God create the most important being in the universe and then just put a blank mask on him that means nothing?
Precisely. To Lavater, the body isn't just a container. It is the pressure of the soul pushing outwards.
Pushing against the skin.
Yes. If your soul is twisted, your face will eventually twist to match it. If your soul is noble, your forehead will physically expand to house that nobility.
He calls physiognomy the origin of all human decision.
Because he's saying that every time you hire someone, marry someone, or cross the street to avoid someone, you are already practicing physiognomy.
He just wanted to codify the rules so we could do it better.
He wanted to turn that gut instinct into hard, readable data.
But here's where it gets really interesting to me. Usually when you have a guy proposing a grand theory of everything, he's trying to sell something expensive.
Right, he's trying to be the gatekeeper of this secret knowledge.
But in the advertisement section of source material, we find this fascinating little drama about the publishing of the book itself.
The Battle of the Editions. This tells us so much about who Lavater actually was as a person.
So break it down for us. The original Essays on Physiognomy comes out, and it's this massive thing. It's called the Quarto edition.
Right, a quarto is basically a coffee table book for emperors.
It was huge.
Huge, heavy, and filled with these intricate, very expensive copperplate engravings. It cost an absolute fortune.
So if you owned a Quarto edition of Lavater, you were wealthy.
It was a massive status symbol, like owning a luxury car today.
Which means Lavater creates this science of understanding man, which he claims is essential for everyone, but only the aristocrats can actually afford to read it.
It absolutely defeats the purpose. If you believe this is the key to loving mankind, you can't gatekeep it behind a paywall that excludes 99% of the population.
Enter the friend,
John Michael Armbruster.
the disruptor of the 18th century publishing world.
Armbruster is Lavater's friend, and he looks at this massive, bloated, expensive book and says, "This is ridiculous. We need the pocket version. We need the paperback."
So he produces the Octavo edition.
It's smaller, it's cheaper, and this is the real kicker, he edited it.
He didn't just shrink the font.
No, he actually cut content. He took a red pen to the master's work. He cut out what he called Lavater's superfluous passages,
Wow.
and he rearranged the fragments to make them flow better for the common man.
That is a bold move for a friend. Hey, I love your book. I'm going to publish a cheaper version that undercuts your sales. And by the way, I deleted the boring parts because you talk too much.
In most eras, that is a lawsuit waiting to happen. Authors are notoriously protective of their words. You don't mess with the director's cut.
But look at Lavater's reaction in the preface. He isn't angry at all.
He's ecstatic.
He endorses it.
He completely endorses it. He writes that Armbruster was more capable of perceiving where I had repeated myself than he was.
He basically admits he has a tendency to ramble.
He does. But more importantly, he says this edition is designed to promote the knowledge and the love of mankind.
That phrase, the love of mankind, that really seems to be the currency here.
It is entirely. Lavater didn't want to be a rich author. He wanted to be a connector.
He genuinely believed that if you could read faces, you would judge people less, not more.
Because you would understand why they are the way they are. He wanted this data to be open source. He wanted the peasant to understand the prince, and the prince to understand the peasant.
So we have a man who is benevolent, maybe a bit verbose, and totally obsessed with the connection between the inside and the outside.
Yes.
But where does that personality even come from? The memoir gives us this incredible breakdown of his genetics. It's almost a case study in nature versus nurture, but specifically focused on his parents.
It is the tale of two parents, and honestly, they could not be more different from each other. It's a wonder they even got along.
Let's start with the father, Henry Lavater.
Henry, a doctor of medicine, a member of the government of Zurich. The text describes him with words like integrity, order, diligence.
The source actually says he was neither a genius nor a man of philosophical inquiry.
Which is a very polite 18th century way of saying he was a bit boring.
Or at least incredibly steady.
He was an economist at heart. He was the guy who made sure the trains ran on time, metaphorically speaking.
He dealt with the physical world.
Facts, medicine, numbers, ledgers. There was no mystery in Henry's world. Everything had a place and everything was in its place.
He sounds like the kind of guy who never lost a sock in his entire life.
Exactly. Predictable, safe, very grounded.
And then we have the mother, Regula Escher.
The firecracker. The absolute polar opposite of Henry.
She sounds exhausting just to be around, honestly.
The text says she had an inexhaustible invention. She had a projecting mind. She was insatiably curious.
She wanted to know everything about everything.
While the father is maintaining the status quo, the mother is constantly looking for novelty. She's looking for the next big idea.
And there's this specific detail that she acted as the apothecary for her husband.
That is such a crucial detail to understand. In the 18th century, medicine wasn't just going to the pharmacy and buying a blister pack of pills.
Right, it was mixing
It
compounds.
was almost alchemy adjacent. So you have the father prescribing the cure based on established rigid medical facts.
But the mother's the one in the back room.
Grinding the herbs, mixing the chemicals, experimenting. She is the mad scientist to his clinical doctor.
So Lavater is the product of this exact collision. The steady, factual doctor and the imaginative, experimental inventor.
And he explicitly says this in the memoir. He says he inherited his mother's imagination and her thirst for novelty.
Which makes sense. Without the mother, there is no physiognomy.
Because think about what physiognomy actually requires. You have to look at a static physical shape. A nose, a chin, a forehead.
And you have to imagine the dynamic soul that created it.
You need the father's clinical observation skills to see the shape accurately, but you desperately need the mother's wild imagination to connect those physical dots to the invisible soul.
He's a hybrid. He is the bridge between the physical and the metaphysical.
Perfectly said.
But here's the thing that really surprised me when reading this. Usually, when you read the biography of a man who writes a massive, groundbreaking scientific treatise, you expect a child prodigy.
You expect a little Einstein doing calculus at age 4.
Right. But the source material describes a child who was, well, a total mess.
A mess is putting it lightly. He was the 12th child. He was born weakly. They actually didn't think he would survive infancy.
But the physical weakness was nothing compared to the psychological turmoil inside this kid.
He calls himself a massive contradiction.
Yes. He says on the surface he was mild, quiet, and good-tempered.
That's the father side coming out, compliance, keeping the peace, just blending in.
But underneath,
He says he was ardent, occasionally violent, very hasty, and very timid.
that specific combination of violent and timid is terrifying. It's like a pressure cooker.
It's pure volatility. He had these intense emotion, rage, passion, excitement, but absolutely no way to express them because he was so socially awkward and fearful.
He was trapping all that energy inside a weak little body.
And the other kids, they smelled blood in the water.
They bullied him.
Mercilessly. They called him a half-fool, a simpleton. They basically treated him like the village idiot.
And to be fair to the bullies, and I really hate to say that Lavater did some things that really made him look simple.
We have to tell the Penny story. This is the moment where I felt so bad for him, but also I kind of understood the bullies.
The Penny story. It is so painful to read because it's just so socially awkward. Set the scene for us.
Okay, so young Lavater is walking around Zurich. Someone gives him a penny.
Right.
Now, a normal kid thinks, candy or a toy, or I'll save it for later.
Of course.
But Lavater walks right into a shop, walks directly up to the counter, holds up the coin and says, "Have you anything for a penny?"
Have you anything for a penny?
He doesn't ask for what he wants. He doesn't even look at the merchandise.
He views the transaction purely as an abstract exchange of values.
Exactly. I have a unit of currency. Please provide a unit of goods.
It's almost robotic. It's like an alien trying to interact with a human shopkeeper for the first time.
It completely lacks social nuance. It suggests a mind that takes things entirely literally. He didn't understand the dance of social interaction.
He just understood the mechanics. Input penny, output item.
And this awkwardness, this fundamental inability to fit in, drove him inward.
Because if the real world is confusing and cruel and you don't even know how to buy candy properly, you build a new world inside your head where you make the rules.
Exactly. And this is where the mother side of his genetics really takes the wheel. He starts building this massive, complex inner world. And he develops some very specific, very strange obsessions.
The towers. The tower.
High towers, of all things to be obsessed with.
The memoir explicitly lists them. Strasbourg, Augsburg, St. Ulrich. He says whenever he saw a high tower, his heart would palpitate with rapture. He was physically compelled to climb them. He needed to get to the top.
He did.
Is this just a conquering fear thing?
Yeah.
Because he was a timid kid who was afraid of everything.
I think it's deeper than that. Think about what physiognomy actually is. It's about seeing the pattern.
Okay.
When you are on the ground, in the streets, life is chaotic. People are yelling at you. Bullies are pushing you. You don't know what to buy with your penny. It's just noise.
But when you climb the tower,
You see the grid, you see the layout, you see the
You
whole...
get the God's eye view.
Exactly. He says he wanted to see things great and large. He wanted to escape the messy details and see the grand design.
That is the mind of a system builder.
That is the exact mind of the man who would later try to map the human face. He wanted to look down and see how it all fit together perfectly.
But the imagination didn't just stop at sightseeing. It went into role play. And this is the part of the deep dive where my jaw hit the floor.
Oh, yeah.
The timid, bullied, church-going boy starts fantasizing about being a bandit.
The benevolent bandit.
It sounds like a comic book character. Or a terrible screenplay.
It really does. But this fantasy is the absolute key to his moral compass. He imagines himself as the chief of a troop of banditti.
But, and this is the crucial constraint, he cannot hurt anyone.
The text is very clear on this. He shuddered at the very idea of violence. He wasn't imagining being a warlord.
So he's a non-violent bandit chief.
Right. He wants to steal with ingenious artifice. He wants to use trickery, stealth, and intelligence to take from the rich.
And then he wants to secretly distribute the loot to the poor.
It's Robin Hood, but it's much more about the method. He wants to be invisible.
It's a power fantasy for the powerless.
Precisely. In his real life, he is highly visible and constantly ridiculed. In the fantasy, he is invisible and incredibly powerful.
He controls the flow of resources.
He corrects the injustices of the world, but he does it from the shadows. He doesn't want the credit. He wants the impact. He wants to be the secret hand that fixes the world.
And he actually practiced this in real life. He didn't just dream it in his bedroom.
He did. He raided his father's pockets.
His father, the doctor.
Right. Henry would keep sugar plums and small coins in his coat to give to his patients' children. Lavater would sneak in, steal them, and then go find poor people on the street and give them away.
Imagine being his dad. I swear I bought sugar plums yesterday. Where do they keep going?
But think about the psychology of that act. He is stealing from his father, who represents authority and order, to give to the poor, who represent mercy and chaos.
He is redistributing the world's wealth to make it fairer. This savior complex is the engine that drives his entire adult life. He desperately wants to save people, even if he has to break the rules to do it.
But before he gets to adult life, he has to survive his own brain. Because this sensitivity, this deep connection to the unseen, it had a dark side.
It wasn't just benevolent fantasies about sugar plums.
No, the ghosts.
We have to talk about the ghost.
This is where the story shifts from a quirky coming-of-age biopic to a literal gothic horror. It's 1756. Lavater is about 15 years old.
And his older brother, Conrad, dies. A traumatic event for anyone, especially in a close-knit family.
But for Lavater, it broke his reality. He goes into the room where the body is laying, he looks at his dead brother, and his mind just snaps.
He hallucinates a pale, shapeless phantom chasing him out of the room.
And this wasn't a one-time nightmare. This trauma lasted for years.
Years. He was completely paralyzed by it.
He couldn't be in a room with a closed door alone. If his mother sent him to get something from the other room, he would freeze in terror.
And the shame of that. He's a teenage boy. He's supposed to be becoming a man.
And he's hiding it from his mother. He's inventing excuses. Oh, I don't want to go in there because I'm busy.
He was living in a constant state of terror.
This shows us that his gift, his ability to see things others couldn't see, was also his greatest curse.
He could sense character in a face, but he could also sense monsters in the shadows.
His imagination was simply too powerful for his own good.
So how does he cope? A kid this scared, this fragile, he has no friends, he scares easily, he's weird.
He turns to the ultimate invisible power, faith.
Lavater was intensely religious.
But not in a dry, theological, academic way. For Lavater, prayer was a tool. It was a daily survival mechanism.
The memoir says he prayed for everything.
If he was in trouble at school, prayer. If he lost money, prayer. It was his only way of trying to assert control over a very scary world.
There is one story in the source material that is, well, it challenges the listener. It really borders on the supernatural.
Yeah.
The Relata versus Revelata incident.
This is the moment that solidified what he called his childish faith.
It's exam time, essentially.
He hands in a Latin exercise to his teacher. The paper is already out of his hands. It's sitting on the teacher's desk. And suddenly, the realization hits him like a freight train. He made a mistake.
Typo.
A very significant one. He wrote relata, which means related things, instead of revelata, revealed things.
In a theology class, that is a massive difference.
It changes the entire meaning of the sentence. And he was terrified of the punishment because the teacher was incredibly strict.
So he prays.
He goes into an absolute panic prayer. But he doesn't pray for forgiveness or mercy from the teacher. He prays for a literal miracle.
God, please change the ink on the paper. Rewrite reality for me.
That is such a bold prayer. God, please do some editing.
And according to Lavater, it actually happened.
When the paper came back to him, the word was corrected. And he specifically notes this detail. He looked closely, and the correction was written in black ink, quote, somewhat blacker than mine.
Okay, play the skeptic for a second. What actually happened?
The skeptic says the teacher saw the mistake, knew the kid was smart but highly anxious, and just quietly fixed it for him.
Or maybe Lavater fixed it himself in a fugue state of anxiety and just forgot.
Or maybe he just misremembered what he originally wrote.
But it doesn't matter what actually happened, does it?
No, it only matters what Lavater believed happened. He says he fed on it. To him, this was proof of concept.
It proved that if you reach out to the invisible world, it can reach back and edit the physical world.
Which is the entire basis of physiognomy.
The invisible soul edits the physical face.
It's all the exact same system. If prayer can change ink on a page, then the soul can change the shape of a nose.
The inner reality dictates the outer reality.
This one moment gave him the absolute confidence to believe in the unseen.
So we have this boy. He's a bundle of raw nerves. He climbs powers compulsively. He hallucinates ghosts. He prays for miracle spell checking.
You would expect this kid to grow up to be a reclusive poet or a librarian or maybe a patient in an asylum.
You certainly wouldn't expect him to be a major public figure. You wouldn't expect him to be a leader of men.
But then comes the career choice. And just like the Penny incident, it happens in a split second of pure impulse.
It's a scene straight out of a movie. A visiting minister, M. Casper Ulrich, comes to the classroom. He's recruiting.
He asks the students, which of you will be a minister?
And Lavater.
He just shouts, I.
Had he even thought about it before?
Never. His parents were grooming him to be a doctor, just like his father. He had zero plans for the ministry. It just came out. It was like a reflex.
The class laughs at him.
Of course they laugh. The simpleton wants to preach. The kid who can't buy a penny's worth of candy wants to save our souls.
But the moment the words left his mouth, he locked in.
He went home and told his mom, I am going to be a minister.
His parents must have been completely terrified. Our volatile, ghost-seeing son wants to lead a congregation.
They were deeply confused. They actually called in outside experts. They consulted with these high-ranking religious figures, Divines Wirtz and Zimmerman.
They basically said, look at our son. Is he crazy or is he called? Because we honestly can't tell.
And what did the experts say?
This is the fascinating part. They looked at this weird, highly imaginative kid and said, let him do it.
They said the sudden impulse might actually be divine.
They saw that his heart was in the right place, even if his head was constantly in the clouds. They saw the passion underneath the weirdness.
And thank goodness they did. Because if he hadn't become a minister, if he hadn't been put in that specific position of moral authority, the next chapter of his life would never have happened.
The action movie chapter.
The unjust bailiff.
This is the climax of his early life. This is where the benevolent bandit fantasy from his childhood violently crashes into the real world.
It's 1762. Lavater is newly ordained. He's young, idealistic, and he stumbles upon a massive political conspiracy.
Introduce the villain of this story.
Felix Grabel. He is a bailiff, which in this context implies a powerful magistrate or a local governor.
He ran a district called Gruningen.
And Grabel was an absolute tyrant. He was extorting the peasantry, abusing his power, stealing land. He was a genuinely bad guy.
So he was a very connected bad guy.
The most connected.
Yeah.
His father-in-law was the burgomaster of Zurich.
That's the head of state.
So Grabel is the son-in-law of the president, essentially. He is totally untouchable.
The victims are too scared to speak up because if you speak up against Grabel, you get crushed by the state.
So it's a classic David and Goliath situation. Or maybe more accurately, it's the quiet, weird kid versus the ultimate school bully, but on a massive geopolitical scale.
Exactly. And remember, this is Lavater, the guy who is afraid of closed doors.
Yeah.
The guy who describes himself as timid.
But he sees this injustice, and something inside him snaps.
The violent side of his nature wakes up. The ardent side.
He teams up with his best friend, Henry Fuseli.
Wait, the Henry Fuseli, the famous painter.
The very same. The guy who painted the nightmare, that famous painting with the demon sitting on the sleeping woman's chest.
It makes perfect sense they were friends.
They were both completely obsessed with the darkness and the unseen soul. They were essentially the original goth kids of Zurich.
So you have the mystic and the goth artist versus the corrupt state. What do they actually do?
They go full Batman. They decide to run a sting operation, but they do it completely anonymously.
They send a letter to Grebel, signed simply JCL.
What does the letter say?
It's not a polite request for him to step down. It's a direct ultimatum. Lavender writes, I give you 2 months, restore what you have unjustly extorted, or expect justice.
He put a timer on a dictator. I give you 2 months.
It's incredibly bold.
Yeah.
It's terrifyingly bold for a kid like him.
And Grebel.
Yeah.
He ignores it. He probably looked at the letter, laughed, and threw it right in the fire. Who would dare challenge him? He's the burgomaster's son-in-law.
So 2 months pass, the clock runs out.
And Lavender doesn't blink. He escalates the situation. He prints a pamphlet titled The Unjust Bailiff.
And he doesn't just staple it to a telephone pole in the town square.
No, he mails it to every single member of the government.
He basically spams the entire cabinet.
And the language he uses, he includes this motto, Brutus, thou sleepest, ah, wert thou alive.
He is invoking the spirit of Roman justice.
He is calling the government accomplices for sleeping through this corruption. He's openly calling them cowards.
This must have caused an absolute panic in Zurich.
Total chaos. The government immediately issues a notice. They demand the anonymous accuser reveal themselves.
They basically say, come out and prove it, or we will hunt you down as a slanderer and ruin you.
This is the moment of truth. Lavender could have stayed hidden. He could have remained the invisible bandit.
He could have said, I did my part, I scared him, I'm out.
But the hero of justice took over. He realized that anonymity just wasn't enough anymore. He and Fuseli actually walked into the council chamber.
Just picture that scene. The room is full of powerful, angry men in wigs. The burgomaster is sitting right there. The tension is incredibly thick.
And in walk these two young, intense intellectuals.
The source says they spoke with such conscious integrity that the whole room just fell silent.
They laid out all the evidence. They were so compelling, so righteous, and so factual that the untouchable Grebel didn't even try to fight it.
He knew he was completely beaten.
He absconded. He fled the country to escape justice.
That is just incredible. The boy who was ridiculed as a fool by his classmates took down the most powerful corrupt official in the city.
It proves that his physiognomy, his intense study of character, wasn't just a parlor trick for him. It was about seeing the absolute truth.
He looked at Grebel and saw a villain. He looked at the poor and saw suffering. And he couldn't just stand by.
It's the benevolent bandit fantasy playing out in real life. He used artifice, the anonymous letter, to steal power from the rich and give justice to the poor.
Exactly. He fulfilled his own childhood prophecy. He became the exact character he invented in his head.
So he's a local hero now, but he's also a budding intellectual. And in 1763, right after this massive political scandal, he goes on a trip.
He travels to Berlin and Barth. And this really feels like the field work for his upcoming book.
It is. He's going on a grand tour to meet the great men of Germany. He wants to see if their physical faces actually match their historical reputations.
He's testing his hypothesis in the wild.
He's doing a physiognomy audit of celebrities.
And the results are mixed, to say the least.
Let's look at some of his reviews. He meets Gellert, a very famous writer at the time.
He respects Gellert. He sees philanthropy on Gellert's lips and high intelligence in his eyes.
But he was deeply disappointed by the body. He said the whole body exhibited melancholy weakness.
He couldn't reconcile it.
It really bothered him. He thought, how can this lively, animated, beautiful writing come from this sad, weak, physical vessel?
He wanted the outside to match the inside perfectly. When it didn't, he struggled to explain it.
He wanted the font to match the text, so to speak.
Then he meets Euler, the legendary mathematician.
Now, when you think of a mathematician, you think serious, furrowed brow, deep in thought, a heavy, intense face.
Someone who looks like they are constantly solving a complex puzzle.
And Lavender sees the exact opposite. He actually draws Euler, we have the sketch, and describes him as having an open, singular countenance.
He says there was no appearance of serious profundity.
No appearance of serious profundity. He's basically saying you don't look smart.
He found Euler to be cheerful, witty, and constantly joking. He looks like a guy you'd have a beer with, not the guy inventing graph theory.
Did that break his theory? If the greatest mathematical mind of the age looks like a stand-up comedian, Doesn't that just prove physiognomy is entirely wrong?
You would think so.
Yeah.
But Lavater was an absolute master of confirmation bias. He would just adjust the theory on the fly.
He'd say, look at the openness in his face. That openness represents the perfect clarity of his mathematical logic. His mind's uncluttered, therefore his face is uncluttered.
He spins it perfectly.
He always finds a way to make the face fit the soul he knows is in there.
But there is a really nice moment on this trip regarding his faith, which shows his character again.
The theological test.
Right. They visit a great thinker named Spalding. Now remember, Lavater's from the Reformed Church, this very specific Protestant denomination.
And they are traveling in deep Lutheran territory. There were massive political and social tensions between these groups.
Spalding jokes with them. He sets a little trap and asks, "Have you been converted by the Lutheran divines yet?"
And Lavater's response:
"We are convinced of the truth of Christianity."
He completely sidesteps the tribalism.
He goes straight to the core. Just like with the book, he didn't care about the expensive quarto edition. He cared about the message reaching the masses.
Just like with Grable, he didn't care about the political hierarchy. He cared about true justice.
He was always looking for the universal truth underneath the superficial labels. He was a universalist in a world obsessed with partisans.
Which brings us beautifully back to the central irony of his entire life. We have just walked through the biography of a man who was a walking bundle of contradictions.
The timid hero, the scientific mystic, the fearful leader.
And the man who claimed, above all else, that you can read everything about a person just by looking at their face.
I think the ultimate takeaway from all these sources is that Lavater himself totally disproves his own theory.
How so?
Well, imagine you are a master physiognomist in 1760. You are walking down the street in Zurich. You see a young man approaching.
He is pale. He is incredibly thin. He looks weakly.
He has a melancholy air about him. He looks down at the cobblestones when he walks. He looks terrified of his own shadow.
I would diagnose him as a simpleton, a nobody, someone to just ignore and walk past.
Exactly. You would see the kid who asked what he could buy for a penny. You would see the coward.
You would never, in a million years, look at that face and see the man who climbed the highest towers in Europe just to see the world.
You wouldn't see the man who walked into the council chamber and stared down a corrupt dictator.
You wouldn't see the benevolent bandit.
His face hid his greatness completely.
It did. Lavater spent his entire life trying to prove that the cover tells you the whole story of the book.
But his own life proves that the book is always deeper than the cover.
That is a beautiful irony. He was the ultimate exception to his own grand rule.
And maybe that's exactly why he was so obsessed with it. He was trying to figure himself out.
He was trying to find the hero in his own mirror. He was looking for any physical evidence that he wasn't just the weak boy everyone said he was.
So the next time you walk into a crowded room and you spot that person across the floor and your brain instantly says, "I know exactly who that is."
Pause. Hesitate. Give it that 100 milliseconds plus a little more time.
Remember the boy who asked for a penny and then grew up to save the city? There is always more behind the mask than you think. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating mind of J.C. Lavater. It's been an incredible look at how we see each other and, more importantly, how we fail to see each other.
Hope to see you in the next one.
Take care.